You good? Okay. I'm going to raise the energy in the room for 1 second. Cool. I'm glad you guys are here. So my goal today is that at some point in this talk, I'm going to say something that will radically alter the trajectory of your life in a positive way. And I have two main things I want to do. The first one is, who here, it's like your first or second or third hackathon? Amazing. Can we have a massive round of applause for people who this is their first time? So my first goal is to make you feel very welcomed. If for whatever reason you feel imposter syndrome, or you feel, oh, I shouldn't be here, like, I'm going to make you feel a lot better about that in a second. And the second one is, if you're like someone who won the Math Olympiad of India and you published 70 iPhone apps by the time you were 4 years old and you write your own compilers for fun, like, I'm going to give you a playbook of how to be a billionaire in like 5 years. Okay, so I'm super dyslexic. First, second, third, fourth grade, no matter what, could not figure out how to read, and I have severe ADHD. And so coding has never been easy for me. When I moved to the United States in 8th grade, I still really struggled with reading and really struggled with writing. And I remember vividly, reading circles were really challenging, and even writing, signatures in people's yearbooks was very scary. And so I would just write the same thing. David, you are a great guy. Bill, you are a great guy. Matthew, you're a great guy. I did this in like 25 people's yearbooks because I didn't want to misspell something. The only problem is I wrote guy instead of G-U-Y, G-A-Y. And IDEs and compilers are as unforgiving as 8th graders when it comes to making one little mistake like that. When I got to Brown, I did not want to study computer science because I thought it was too scary for me. And so the first year, I didn't do anything that related to coding. In my second year, I decided that if I wanted to be the person that I wanted to be, I needed to learn how to code. So I signed up for CS15. And the lectures were in this room. And TA office hours was the first assignment we got. Most people finished it in 3 hours. It took me about 27 hours. And I realized that I was not good at computer science, and that scared me. And I decided I was not going to drop the class. I was going to finish the class. And the only way that that happened was I would go to the Ratty every single day at 8 a.m. I would look around, and I would steal a bag of bread, and I would turn it into 8 peanut butter sandwiches, and I would take it with me to the Sun Lab. And I would not leave the Sun Lab until midnight. And I did this for like 30 days straight, surviving off of peanut butter sandwiches. And at a certain point, I started to tell a difference between a bug because my spelling was bad and a bug because there was actually a mistake in my program. And I got really good at debugging as a result of this. I signed up for my first hackathon without knowing how to code at all. Really, I winged it off the fact that I could do backflips and people would join my team. But eventually, I learned how to make iPhone apps and then websites. And I learned them through YouTube videos and Udemy courses. I would see what someone did on the screen, and then I would do the same thing on mine. And I built, I think it was like 21 different projects, right? Everything from like mini clones of Instagram and Snapchat and Google Maps to like full fleshed out websites that had payment integrations. And I realized that I loved it. And before starting to code, I had built several businesses when I was in high school. One was called Cliff's Coupons. One was like a 3D printed skateboard brake. Things that were more mechanical but less computer science oriented. But the thing is, being able to code is like being God, right? Like, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And as a developer, all you're doing is you're creating stuff from scratch. And you can do that on a plane. You could do that over lunch. You could do that just from your laptop. You can create value independently, and that is, to me, one of the coolest things that exists in the world, right? If you go back to like 1776, right, you had the founding fathers and Alexander Hamilton, and the things that they could do to create value independently is they could write. They could write the Declaration of Independence. They could write, the founding documents of the country. But you guys can write code independently that creates value for other people. And so I built about 36 different things when I was a student at Brown. And I didn't know what I wanted to work on full-time when I graduated. And that was scary, so I ended up writing a 30-page paper about my worldviews. And the conclusion was, above everything else, I wanted to be the person that I needed when I was a kid, and the thing I really needed was someone to help me read. And right around this time, in 2015, DeepMind published a series of academic papers, one of which was called WaveNet, which is autoregressive text-to-speech focused. And I was like, that's really cool. I can make something really cool with this. And so I started focusing on that. Today, there's about 45 million people who use Speechify. But in the beginning, there were not. And the big inspiration for me to start coding was my little brother, Tyler. So Tyler is the exact opposite of me. Tyler started coding when he was 7, building Dragon Ball Z websites. Then he taught himself Objective-C came later. Then he taught himself Visual Basic and got really into encryption. Then he started coding to hack video games in assembly when he was 9. He skipped 5 years of math in high school. He skipped 5 years of computer science in high school. And then he did math as an undergrad, started a cybersecurity company called Black SMS that outranked WhatsApp in the App Store for a hot minute, dropped out of school to run that full time, and then went back to do his master's in AI. And I was like, there's no way I can compete with this kid. Like, what am I supposed to do? And so I realized that the thing that I could do was talk to users really well. And so when I would go to hackathons, I wouldn't try to win because I built the most technical product. I would try to win because I built the most usable product. And so I would make a wireframe, literally on a piece of paper with like a pen and pencil, and then I would go to other people in the hackathon and have them like dummy test the buttons and see what they would do. And then I would go back to the team and we'd make that thing, and then I'd have like an actual MVP on an iPhone, and then I'd give it to people and see what would happen. And I would get feedback really, really quickly. The most important thing that ever happened in Speechify is maybe like 3 years in, we still didn't have really solid product market fit. I made a giant button. It accounted for 20% of the screen. And it said, help/message us. And it was bright red. And if you clicked it, it didn't send you to an email or intercom. It sent you to an iMessage conversation with me with my phone number. So it didn't matter if it was like 3 in the morning, I would answer you. And then I added the modal to automatically have other people's phone numbers as well from our team. And so we got so good at responding to users and finding how to solve their problems that the product became really good really, really quickly. 6 months after this, the product got a lot better, but it still was not good enough. So what I did is I exported a list of all the emails of people who used Speechify on a Google Sheet, and I FaceTime audio called all of them and had them explain to me what was crappy about the product. And then the product became really good. And so the point here is that it doesn't matter if you fail and you fail and you fail and you fail over and over again in computer science. No one is good, except for Tyler Weitzman, at computer science from the very beginning. Everybody has to start somewhere. And all my friends who ended up getting jobs at Google and Palantir and Meta and all these big companies, most of them didn't do computer science before they got to college. They picked it up at some point partway through. Definitely true for me. I started sophomore year. And I took CS32 as a senior. I didn't major in computer science, but it's such an accessible discipline that everybody should learn how to code, right? In 2025, there's no such world as I'm going to like leave a massive dent to the universe, and I'm going to like leave this incredible tool behind. And there's some conversations people have sometimes, and oh, AI makes it so that you don't need to code. That is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard. The fact that you have stuff like Cursor now and LLMs means that you can learn any language instantaneously, and as long as you have the underlying principles, you can move so quickly to create value, and like that's a privilege. So I'm excited for all of you guys that you get to do this hackathon and that you get to be kind of mired in this environment of excited building, because it'll serve you for the rest of your life. The next thing that was really impactful for me in building Speechify was not just talking to users and understanding what they wanted and building products. It was also finding other people who I could work with. I'm going to say one more thing before I switch there, and that's how to build the belief that you can be good at computer science if you don't think that you're good. So when I took that class, CS32, software engineering, I got my ass kicked. Like, it was very hard. And I ended up taking this little notebook, and every morning I would write 3 times, I'm good at computer science. I'm good at computer science. I'm good at computer science. And before I go to sleep, I'd write, I'm good at computer science. I'm good at computer science. I'm good at computer science. And I just brainwashed myself to believe that I was good at computer science. I don't know if it worked, but at least I got good at building products. And so I ended up building the first Mac app, website, iPhone app, Chrome extension for Speechify. But as the product got more complex, I needed other people's help. And I think maybe like 50 people had touched the code base at this point in the history of the product, and people didn't necessarily stay. There's a saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a team. And so all the projects that I'd done up until this point, I was so excited about them, and it was difficult for me to get other people as excited about them, where they would pull all-nighters like while they had midterms and other stuff. So like I was just working, and every once in a while people would engage with me, but it was kind of like me going solo. And I was really looking for someone else who could join me in the journey. So at the time, Facebook was like a thing people used. So I would go on a bunch of Facebook groups for hackathons, right? Hackathon Hackers Europe, MLH, whatever. And I'd write, hey, my name is Cliff. I'm working on this product. It helps kids with dyslexia and ADHD read. And I need some help. Anyone interested in helping me? And this guy from Bulgaria messaged me. His name is Simon. No one in my family knew anyone in the history of his family. We had no mutual connections. We grew up speaking different languages, different religions. But he was like, I would love to help. And I was like, great. So I sent him a sketch file of what I wanted done. I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning. It was done. And I was like, wow. And then he did it again the next day, and then he did it again the next day. And eventually, I got him a visa, got him an apartment, got him a flight to San Francisco, and moved him out to San Francisco, and he left college in the middle to go work on Speechify for a year as an iOS intern. By the end of that year, he was like a full iOS engineer. And then the next year, he became head of iOS. And then he became head of engineering. And then he became head of recruiting. And now he's the COO of Speechify. He, this week, is getting his US citizenship after getting his green card. And he leads a team of basically 160 people at Speechify. And so one thing that is very common in Speechify is we will hire people no matter what their background is. There's a guy, Jan, who texted me. He was 17 years old. He found Speechify from an ad. He started using it a lot. He had built a TikTok following of like 250,000 people. And he just like was incessant about getting on a phone call. So finally I got on a phone call, and he ended up joining Speechify and building a lot of our growth org at the company. And so there's a lot of people who actually end up joining Speechify when they're in college, because when it comes to building stuff, the playing field is really even. At no time in the history of the world has it been this easy to create value. It used to be that if you wanted to create value, you need to get a loan from a bank. And to do that, you need someone to vouch for you, and you need to be like 40 years old. Now you can build everything from your computer, right? Movies like The Social Network make it seem a lot easier than it actually is, but it really is quite easy. And so the key with hiring and recruiting is, number one, give love to other people first. Help other people as much as possible, expecting nothing in return. And every once in a while, the universe will send to you someone who will help you. And then you help them, they help you, and you grow together. The easiest way to recruit people to your vision is have a really, really big vision. And so one thing that helped me a lot with Speechify is, number one, it was a personal use case. And I was not trying to build something because I found a technology that particularly excited me. I had a problem that particularly challenged me. And I realized that there's not that many kids with dyslexia who code, let alone kids with dyslexia and ADHD who are second language speakers of English. And text-to-speech has been around since 1962. It predates the internet, but nobody built a really good text-to-speech tool. So I was like, cool, let me build it. And actually, the original version of Speechify I built when I was 18 because I couldn't do the summer reading book for Brown. I think I finished 50% of it on my own, and then I like MacGyvered together something that would read the rest of it to me. And then I built a PDF parser where I can add a PDF, and then it would NLP read that PDF. And then I built a Chrome extension that gives me play buttons across my entire browser, so if someone sent me an email, I just click play, and it would read it to me. And then I built an iPhone app where I could take a picture of a physical document, hand out in class, and they would read it to me. And who here listens to podcasts or audiobooks? Cool. Who listens at more than 1x speed? Who listens to lecture capture at more than 1x speed? There we go, that's the entire crowd. And so I taught myself to listen really fast. In the beginning, I listened at 0.75x speed, but now I listen to everything at 3x speed. So I wanted something that let me listen faster and in increments of 0.1. And that would give me keyboard shortcuts to do that. So I built that into the Mac app. I built that into the iPhone app. So now, the average American reads at between 180 and 200 words per minute. When people use Speechify, they read at 300 words per minute immediately. And then within a year, they're listening at 500 to 600 words per minute, which is closer to 2.75 to 3x speed. And so people people listen 3 times faster than they read. They can read and listen at the same time, so they double their attention and they double their comprehension. And it's not boring, and it reads everything to you, and now it turns all the ebooks into audiobooks, so even if there's no audiobook, you can listen with it. But that only happened because I had a personal challenge that I could not solve, and I was like, cool, nobody else has solved it, I might as well do it, and I found other people who were willing to help me alongside the journey, but I needed to learn a lot of things along the way. How to make iPhone apps, how to make websites, how to legitimately coach myself to believe that I could do it. And then the scariest thing that happened is I was going to graduate. And everyone's getting jobs as a product manager, as a software engineer, as an investment banker. And there's nothing more sad than a really talented person going into investment banking. And I was like, that's not going to be me. I went and I talked to a bunch of investment banks, and I was like, why do you like working here? And they'd be like, well, the compensation is really nice. And I was like, all right, like, are you working with the smartest people you've ever met? Like, are you creating like a ton of value for the world? And like, I didn't get the answers that I wanted to get. And mind you, like, I really like econ. But I didn't feel like I was creating the value I wanted to create by doing that. I was like, okay, so either I'm going to take a job at a company or I'm going to build my own thing. And my conclusion was, if I could go work for Elon Musk, if I could go work for one of these founders who had given talks at MIT that really inspired me, like, that would be great. The problem is no one would take me because I wasn't actually that amazing of a developer. And so I found ways like this guy, Jan, who I mentioned, of helping in other ways, right? I teach people how to scale the social media side or the ad side or whatever, how to talk to users. And like, I MacGyvered my way into working for a YC company. It was an amazing experience. I learned so much. So I could not recommend more if you have the opportunity to find a company that is growing really, really fast, to go and work at that company for like a year or 2 or 3 and have the experience that Simon has. And ideally, find a place that is very meritocratic and very much not political. So a spot where you can learn really fast and you can advance, and they allow you to expand your scope. So even if you come in with a strong background in Kotlin development for Android, they'll still let you learn Go and go expand their like SDK, whatever it might be. So I found a couple of opportunities like that, and that helped me a lot. And towards the time that I was going to graduate, the big decision was, do I take a job full-time or not? And I just couldn't find a company that would employ me, so I convinced 2 of my professors, Hazeltine and Warshay, to sponsor me to stay as a visiting scholar at Brown. So I had a student ID, I was still on meal plan, I basically lived on campus, I just didn't pay tuition, didn't have homework, and have vagabond classes, and it was amazing. And when I was a student, I actually studied renewable energy engineering. It was an independent major, and I got to take classes at 16 different departments. And so the reason I got good at design is I took a lot of classes at RISD. And I would just sit in the ratty, and I would code. And I would force myself to do at least 6 hours a day. And if I didn't, I had to do, I think it was 200 pull-ups and 300 push-ups the next day before 10 a.m. And I would just keep myself accountable to my friends. And like, I would send them screenshots of the screen time on my computer to make sure that I did this. And by the end of that year, I had a really good product for Speechify, and people started to use it. And I would sneak into conferences for kids with dyslexia. And when a keynote speaker would finish speaking, typically, here I was invited, typically I was not invited. I would jump on the stage, do a backflip. People thought it was interesting, and then I'd plug in my computer and demo Speechify. And so I think the first time I did this, 16 principals offered to fly me out to their schools to teach the kids how to use Speechify. And I would sit in the back of the class, and I would see what broke, what didn't break. Did it work on your Chromebook? Did it work on your Android? And I would literally live fix the problems. And then I'd go to the next school. And eventually, we got to the point that it wasn't only kids using Speechify, but also professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants, people in the military, executives, people in finance. And it wasn't only people with dyslexia. It was people with dyslexia, ADHD, low vision, autism, anxiety, concussion, second language learners. Speechify is now the 5th highest grossing productivity app on the App Store, right? Above us is DeepSeek and OpenAI and Gmail, and we are above Perplexity, Claude, XAI, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive, a lot of Google products for some reason, and Microsoft products, Outlook. And that's just like one of our products, because we also have the Chrome extension and the Mac app and the SDK and the API, and we have the ability to make anyone's voice in super high quality. But like, I would never have gotten to this point unless I had a little notebook where I wrote, I'm good at computer science, I'm good at computer science, I'm good at computer science. So if you're sitting in the audience right now and you think, I'm not good at computer science, start writing, I'm good at computer science, I'm good at computer science, I'm good at computer science. And I promise you it'll come true. Now let's talk for a second to the math genius in the crowd who's been building compilers since they were 5 years old. Number 1, take the hardest classes you have access to, right? People are pointing at this guy. Number 1, take the harder classes you have access to. Number 2, email me, cliff@speechify.com. Number 2, email me, cliff@speechify.com, or send me a message on Instagram, Cliff Weitzman. Number 3, contribute to open source. I have never seen a faster growth rate for someone than when they go from building their own products to starting to work on large, complex code bases with other super talented engineers. You can do that inside of a company, or you can do that in the context of open source. Next, read a lot of books. So I suck at reading, but I'm really good at listening. And since I was 14 years old, I've been listening to 2 audiobooks every single week. So I'm more than 2,000 books in at this point. And it's like fantasy, sci-fi, theology, philosophy, economics, books about physics. It completely changed how my brain works. And the discipline of learning how to build stuff is like a superpower and you can collect the infinity stones if you combine it with the ability to talk to users and having a really solid understanding of the world. And in my opinion, that only comes from reading. And so the reason why Speechify has so many users today is by 2020, we had really, really good product market fit. People would download the app, they'd pay for it, they'd retain all the way through. And I was like, how do I pour fuel on this flame? So I made a list of the top 100 best performing consumer subscription companies in the world, and I emailed every CEO, every head of growth, and I would go to their office and I would see how they bought ads. And so I would like sit next to Mike Krieger, who's the founder of Instagram, of Ev Williams, who's the founder of Twitter, or the founders of Robinhood, or the founders of Audible, of Grammarly, and I saw how they did this and I got really good at it. Then I made a list of the top 100 creators, and I messaged all of them and I became friends with all of them. So I went, and for 3 weeks, I lived at Mr. Beast's house, and I learned how he made videos. And then we like made a video together, and I learned a lot. And then Logan Paul gave me his horse for an ad and like directed the ad. And then I learned a lot from Ali Abdaal. And I learned a lot from Yes Theory, and I lived in their house for like 2 weeks. And I got really, really good at making content. And so today, we get about 200 million impressions on Speechify ads every single month. And that results in like an astronomical number of people who find out about the product and learn how to use it. And so, again, collect the infinity stones as you go. And every division that I've ever ran at Speechify, basically the framework is I read 100 books about the topic, I talk to 100 experts about the topic who are like on the bleeding edge, and then I try a bunch of things, I figure out what works, and then I find someone who's more talented than me to replace me, and then I go and do the same thing for the next department. And then we coach the people inside of Speechify how to do that as they're building out the next kind of longevity of their organization. I'm going to give a little bit of time for questions, so I'll just give a quick summary of what we covered today. The first thing is if this is your first hackathon, welcome. We love to have you here. You should not feel scared. You should not feel afraid. And you should definitely not feel imposter syndrome. Everybody feels it. It's normal. The second thing is if you feel like you can build products in your sleep, focus on talking to users. Focus on finding amazing people to work with, and send me an email. If you want to scale products really quickly, don't just build excellent products and talk to users. Figure out how to grow them, whether it be via SEO, telling your story online, making good content, running ads, etc. Read a ton of books, be kind to your professors, and do as many hackathons as you can. Welcome.
Thank you so much to Cliff. We're going to have a little bit of a Q&A. So any questions you guys have, feel free to ask them, and we'll have some hackathon numbers come around with the mic.
Perfect. Or if you have a question, you can speak loud. Go for it.
Where'd you learn to how'd you learn to do a backflip?
When I was 6, how did you learn how to do a backflip, Cliff? When I was 6, I saw a video in a movie of Jackie Chan doing a backflip, and I was like, obviously I have to learn how to do this. And so I did gymnastics for 1.5 years in Israel, and then I moved here, and gymnastics was really expensive. So I learned how to do flips off of YouTube, and I found a place that had an open gym, and it was very expensive, so I convinced the guy that if I got to a certain level of fitness, I could come for free. So then I drilled that, and then I would stack mats up like this, and then I would do the flip off the mats, and then eventually I got rid of the mats, and then now I could do like a round off back handspring double backflip, and I track my goals in a Google Sheet for like 1 month, 3 months, 6 month, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, across every single different category of my life. So like romance and dating, things that I have goals for like my family and my dad and my siblings, fitness, music, building, and so there's like 3 gymnastics moves, rise cork, Webster, and a really high side flip that have been on my list for like 5 years. I still train 3 times a week just to get those. And so you decide that you want something, and then you don't let it off your list until you get it. That's the short answer. Yes?
So you asked 100 experts when you're learning something new, as you said. What do you think is the best way to go cold email?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so cold emails, this is the framework. Number 1, you keep it short. Number 2, you show value. Number 3, you give a compliment. And number 4, you suggest an exact time and place. So let's say you wanted to message me. You'd be like, hey, Cliff, I was really inspired by your talk at Hack at Brown, and I've watched like these 4 videos of you. I'm a student at Brown. I'm studying this. Enter like 1 or 2 accomplishments of yours. I'd love to ask you 2, 3 questions, whatever. I'd love to get to know you. Are you free for coffee when you're visiting Brown, or a Zoom call, 3 or 4 p.m. on Tuesday, February 22nd, or Wednesday, February 23rd? my best, your name. That's the first email or message. You don't get a response. A week later, you message again. Hey, just wanted to kindly follow up. A week later, you message again. Hey, Cliff, I don't want to be annoying. Tell me if you want me to stop, but I'm really inspired by you. I just wanted to follow up. So this is exactly the strategy that I use, and I'll do it on email, on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever. People never tell me to stop because I do it kindly. I'm respectful of their time. Don't send long emails. People don't read long emails. And people are busy. They often don't read their emails. There's a guy, Josh Reeves, who founded Gusto. And he gave a talk exactly like this at MIT. And I was like jumping out of my seat when I was 18 years old listening to this talk. I think I sent him 27 emails. And eventually we grabbed coffee. And so again, the framework is, hi name, I'm inspired by you because of XYZ. Here are 2, 3 accomplishments of mine. And like, give good ones. If you don't give good ones, they will not meet with you. But every single person of this audience, if you ended up at Brown or you're in Hackathon, like you have done cool things, just like give the 1-minute summary of your college application, basically. And then like specific time and place. 2 times, 2 days. More questions? Yes, back there.
Pre-product, what's like your script for talking to users? Like before creating.
Yeah, pre-product, what is your script for talking to users? So I'll give a non-computer science example, then I'll give a CS one. One of my favorite things I ever built is a product called Board Break. It was a 3D printed skateboard break. And I used to ride my longboard a lot. And every time I would ride my longboard down the main green and I saw someone else with a longboard, I would jump off my longboard, run after that person, and be like, hey, excuse me, how do you stop? And they like couldn't answer my questions. Be like, oh, I stick my foot out and I drag it on the ground. It's like, okay. Here is a sketch, like literally pen and paper, of something I'm building. Would you use this? And everyone would be like, of course. I'd be like, amazing. How much would you pay for this? And they'd give me a number. And I was like, great. We're doing the first run right now. Here's my Venmo. Do you want to pre-order one? And like some of them would pre-order it. And I'm like, cool. People would actually buy this. And so the hackathon that I built this in, I couldn't go find a bunch of longboarders. So I found all the skateboard shops in Providence, Rhode Island. And I called them on the phone. And I was like, hey, do you have a thing that stops longboards? Oh, you don't. Do you happen to be the owner or the manager? OK, cool. Hey, we have this product. Would you carry this in your store? And so I called like 30 stores, and 12 of them said yes. I'm like, cool. That's pretty good ratio. What do you do with products? Today, there's no such thing as pre-product, because you go to bold.new, or you go to Cursor, or you go wherever, you build an MVP, and like, go to Claude, right, and just use that. Build an MVP. And then you hand the phone or the computer to someone, and you don't say anything. Like literally, I used to go do user interviews with duct tape on my mouth. And I would film the screen, and I would film them with a second phone, and I would just see what happens. And that's how you do good user research. I can't tell you how bad people are at user research. It's actually insane. And like, really, I just chalk it up to laziness. There's a guy, Jason Yuan, who went to RISD, who I am a really big fan of. And he did a comparison of Apple Music and Spotify. And all he did was he sat at a Starbucks, and he would buy people coffee in exchange for them giving them 20 minutes of him interviewing them. And then he wrote a big Medium post on it, and he got an internship at Apple as a result. So go to any place, like go to the Ratty. That's all you need to do. Go to the Ratty, go to a table of 7 people, and say, hey, my name is Cliff. I'm doing a hackathon. I'm working on this project. Can I ask you 2 or 3 questions? And they'll always say yes. And then just ask them your questions, and then show them the product, get the feedback. Boom, that's one table. Go do the rest of the 25 tables in the Ratty. By the end of that, you'll be set. Let me take 3 more. Yes?
I just wanted to say you look really handsome.
Sorry?
You look really handsome today.
I look really handsome today. Thank you. I really like your beanie. I appreciate it. Very kind. You get an internship. Yes, back there.
Yeah, in terms of like, you're talking about different marketing channels. What's
Yes.
kind of the most surprising or unique insight you've learned from all of your experience?
Great question. Great question. So the question was, in terms of different marketing channels, what is the most surprising thing you've learned that was like non-obvious to you? So I'll give you a couple. Number 1, I tried everything in the beginning, and everything failed. Most people at that point would be like, clearly my product is shit, and I should not work on this. And I was like, no way. I am the person I am today because of text-to-speech. I would not have graduated high school without text-to-speech. People don't know how good this stuff is. I am just not communicating well enough. Let me communicate better. And so the first thing that I did is I made a Kickstarter video for Speechify. I shot it in sales. And like, I think like 3,000 people watched that video. And I gave a talk at the Hamilton School. I got a fancy award, Lifetime Achievement Award for Dyslexia, which you should not give a 20-year-old, but whatever. And someone in the audience asked me, how many people do you think you're going to have using the product? How long will it take you to get to 1 million users? And I was like, the next 3 months. It took me like the next 4.5 years, bro. So like, the road is long, but you've got to be really, really determined and dedicated. So all these ads didn't work. And I was like, okay, let me just be vulnerable. So I started writing a book publicly online about my experience with dyslexia. Every day I'd publish 500 words, and I did this for 30 days. And I wrote this at the time on Facebook, and I would link every time I'd post the previous post. Like I'd go and edit them so you could go backwards and forwards. You could do this on Instagram today, you could do this on Reddit, you could do it anywhere. But I gained like 30,000 followers who were like moms of kids with dyslexia. That was the first thing that worked for me, like after trying many, many things. I shot so many YouTube videos, so many ads, like nothing worked. Finally, I was like, you know what, screw this, it's gonna be a volumes game. I made a list of the top 100 best performing ads in the history of the world, Dollar Shave Club ad, Old Spice commercial, and I just reshot all those ads, but about Speechify. Like I rewrote the script. Like I got that horse from Logan Paul because I needed a white horse for the end of like the Dollar Shave Club, the Old Spice commercial. And like 2 of those AdWords worked. I wrote a rap song about dyslexia. That actually did kind of well. And then Read to You on Spotify. It's really good, actually. And finally, I got Facebook to work, but I think I burned like $400,000 on ads on Facebook before it finally started working. And I think I burned like $2 million on YouTube ads before those started working. And a lot of people convince you to like hire an agency. Agencies are not good. Learn it yourself. So we have a thing at Speechify called the IC Manifesto, individual contributor. Like, if you're gonna build a product, learn how to buy the Facebook ads. Learn how to make the video. Like, learn CapCut, like edit, right? Learn how to talk to a camera. Learn how to code. Learn how to design. Like, it's so easy to learn these things. And my best friend Valentine has a great line, which is a little bit of slope makes up for a lot of y-intercept. So it doesn't matter if the person who you're competing against started up here and you started up here. If they're this slope and this is your slope, you're just going to intersect them. So just learn faster. And obviously, be meta about it. Get the derivative up. So finally, I got the Facebook ads to work. And then they worked for a long time. And then Mr. Beast pulled me into a video that we did in the beginning of last year. And I stopped focusing on it at all, worked on that video, came back, and I was like, oh, our ads are crap now. And so we ended up transitioning ways from the person who was leading that team. And I had not done ads in a very long time because I was busy hiring people for the AI team. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it myself. So I like the number 100 because 100 is like, if you fail, it didn't work. So I wrote 100 scripts. I shot them all. I was the talent. I edited them all in CapCut, and then I ran them all. And like 3 of them became 3 of our best performing ads for that year. And then I sourced a bunch of video editors. I did 2 days back-to-back where I did an onboarding call for 10 of them, an onboarding call for another 10 of them. And like 3 of those people ended up being absolutely amazing. And today, we test 10,000 creatives every single month on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So it's a volume game as well. So that was the first thing. The next thing is Google Ads are the most profitable form of customer acquisition because people are looking for your product already. So the highest profit you will find is Google. But Google has a ceiling, which is the number of people who are Googling for products like yours. Meta, Instagram, TikTok, etc., you can create demand from scratch. It's like the aisle before you buy something in a store and there's like a candy bar there. You didn't intend to buy the candy bar. It's like interruption marketing. That has an unlimited cap. It's just how creative are you with sharing your message. And then the best people at marketing, essentially, are copywriters. And you can study copywriting. Like read a bunch of books about copywriting. It'll change your life. And there's a form of genius there because it's combining, the guy to read, by the way, is David Ogilvy on marketing. The people who are really good at this, it's like a genius because you're combining science and creativity in a way that's really, really difficult. And the last thing I'll say, if you have a great product and you really believe in it, and the marketing doesn't work, it doesn't mean that the product is not good. It means you're not a good enough marketer. So get better at it. And if there's something that you truly believe in your heart, like I believed in Texas Speech, just don't give up on it. Most startups that I see fail, the first reason the startups fail is co-founder disagreements. The second one is they run out of money. And the third one, but like the most real one, is they just gave up. So just don't give up and you'll be successful. Lincoln has a great line. You cannot fail unless you quit. Just don't quit. All right, 2 more questions, then I'm up. Yes?
Actually, I think, unfortunately,
Unfortunately, so I'm gonna stick around. Come say hello. I'm giving another talk at 2 p.m. in the Nelson Center for the entrepreneurship thing on there. So if you want more ideas that are more practical, go there. Thank you guys and welcome.
Quick round of a big round of applause.
I hope so.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite our